Welcome to the White Knife Theater. Because when the police first entered Nicole's home, the knife was in the cabinet, and now it appears in a trash can. This is unrealistic and should not happen. Under the temptation of high media payments for clues, evidence, and knives were fabricated. In the influence of the media, O.J. Simpson has gradually become a touchstone for human nature regarding money and fame. The morality of media reporters, lawyers, and police officers is all being reassessed. How does Dr. Lee Chong-yu position himself in such a whirlpool? I believe that human nature is inherently good, but our professions are uncontrollable and can show us a more brutal side of power. Produced by Himalaya, the 16th episode of the Chinese-American detective Dr. Lee Chong-yu's crime drama, The Truth About the Murder Weapon. The Truth About the Murder Weapon. Following the exposure of the white police officer's fabrication of the knife, the racial issues already present in the O.J. Simpson case began to be amplified. More and more black people believed that O.J. Simpson was innocent, thinking that the LAPD was framing him in order to quickly solve the case. Although the LAPD repeatedly claimed that the police officer who fabricated the knife evidence for money was fired, the black community did not buy it. As large numbers of black people demonstrated in front of the LAPD headquarters, Dr. Lee Chong-yu arrived at the examination room on schedule to conduct an appraisal of the stiletto folding knife purchased by O.J. Simpson. At this moment, in the examination room, besides Dr. Lee Chong-yu and the police assistant Sam, there were also Judge Lance Ito, O.J. Simpson's chief defense attorney Shapiro, the prosecution representative Marcia, and their respective assistants. Your Honor, I am ready to start the examination, Dr. Lee said. All right, Dr. Lee, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, the blade of this folding knife is in a new state and cannot be directly determined to have been used in a murder. There are no visible bloodstains or hair under the naked eye, and the price tag is still on it. Next, I will use fingerprint development technology to find potential fingerprints, and then use instruments to further test for blood tissue or hair. Rest assured, if this knife has any such contamination, even after careful cleaning, it will still be detected, Dr. Lee explained. Sam opened the fuming chamber in the examination room, then handed Dr. Lee the alpha-cyanoacrylate. Dr. Lee, if I remember correctly, we need to fume for at least 2 hours before we can get the results, right? Asked Ms. Xie. Up to now, we have been waiting for the truth of this case for too long. As the chief prosecutor, Marcia appeared very calm, seemingly confident of the outcome and not hesitating to loudly predict the result. Just wait, we are not far from victory, she said. Compared to the prosecution's confidence, O.J. Simpson's defense attorney Shapiro was very anxious, fearing an unfavorable result and unable to help but mutter to himself, "Why hasn't the time come yet? I hope O.J. didn't lie about not using that knife." Time ticked by second, and both the prosecution and defense were nervously waiting for the final examination to be completed. Would the mystery of the murder weapon be solved? All right, the time is up. Dr. Lee, how is it? Asked Judge Ito. There are bloodstains on this knife, right? Asked Shapiro. Dr. Lee, what is the result? Has this knife been used? Asked Marcia. I would like to add one more thing. The purpose of scientific investigation is to discover facts and truths, which is not directly related to the emotional impact it will bring to people. We can take the knife out of the fuming chamber now, Dr. Lee said. Ms. Marcia, Mr. Shapiro, I'm sorry, but according to the regulations, I can't tell you the results directly right now. I will issue an examination report later, and the judge will distribute the report to you both. After you confirm it is correct, the judge will make subsequent arrangements for this examination, Dr. Lee explained. That's right, Ms. Marcia, Mr. Shapiro, if you have no questions about Dr. Lee's examination process, we can leave now, said Judge Ito. All right, thank you, Dr. Lee, said Marcia. The results are everyone's, but the responsibility is mine. I believe you won't commit perjury, Shapiro said. All right, let's go, Shapiro added. Mr. Shapiro, it's no use lingering here, said Marcia. Dr. Lee Chong-yu did not directly announce the results in the examination room for 3 reasons. First, the media, having received the news, had already set up cameras and lenses outside the examination room. waiting to capture the first emotional reactions of the defense and prosecution upon hearing the news. Any slight abnormal emotion from anyone could be amplified and overinterpreted. Second, Dr. Lee directly found 14 fingerprints on the knife, and it might be a fingerprint belonging to someone unexpected yet relevant to the case. This required more fingerprint comparison work. Third, and most importantly, Dr. Lee received a message about the origin of the knife. After returning to the office with Sam, Dr. Lee began to draft the report. Sam, have you written an appraisal report before? Dr. Lee asked. I have written some, but not for a case of this level, Sam replied. I'm still young and inexperienced. For such high-profile cases, I usually do more peripheral work. This time you write it, and I'll correct it, Dr. Lee suggested. That's great. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Sam said. I'm just worried about another thing. I just got the news that the knife store owner has sold the story of this knife to the National Enquirer, Dr. Lee said. How could that be? The owner is quite old and seems honest. The longer you're in this business, the deeper your insight into human nature will be. Sometimes it brings surprises, but more often it brings shocks, Dr. Lee explained. So you mean you lean more towards the belief that human nature is evil? Oh, no. I believe human nature is inherently good. It's just that our professions are uncontrollable and can show us a more brutal side of power, Dr. Lee clarified. The story of a knife store owner in the National Enquirer will be a big blow to Marcia. Once a witness appears in this newspaper, their credibility is greatly reduced. This newspaper, though widely circulated, is really a tabloid. It has bought a lot of celebrity scandals and dirt before, mostly not hearsay, Dr. Lee continued. So many of my media friends don't consider this newspaper a news product, but entertainment content. In terms of sales, you could say 7 out of 10 Americans read it. But if you ask them if they have, many will deny it, Dr. Lee said. From this OG case, I found that many people seem to have a frightening voyeuristic tendency. Why is someone coming at a time like this? It can't be to ask us to return the examination room, can it? Dr. Lee wondered. Attorney Shapiro. Dr. Lee, I'm really sorry to disturb you at this time. May I come in? Shapiro asked. According to the regulations, you are not allowed to see me at this time, Dr. Lee replied. I know. Don't worry. I just checked, and there's no one at the door. I also had my assistant and bodyguard guarding the entrance. It won't affect anything. I just really want to know the result. We are a team. I know you have professional principles, and I don't want to put you in a difficult position. I just want to ask you, is the result in our favor? You can just shake or nod your head quickly, Shapiro pleaded. Alas, I'm sorry, but I can't answer that question either, because at this moment, I am not here as a member of the defense team, but as a court-appointed forensic expert. I must strictly follow the legal procedures. I hope you understand, Dr. Lee said. Sam, please leave now. Don't push me, Dr. Lee added. Dr. Lee, please help me, Shapiro begged. There are no consequences. After multiple rounds of repeated testing and verification, a detailed forensic report was quickly sent to both the prosecution and the defense. The report stated that the knife had never been used for any purpose. No blood, human tissue, or hair fragments were found on the knife, and the original price tag was still in its proper place on the blade. The blade showed no changes in shape or form. In summary, the knife was in the same condition as when it was purchased. After both the prosecution and the defense confirmed the accuracy of the forensic results, the judge immediately placed the folding knife purchased by O.G. Simpson into a brown manila envelope for evidence sealing. This mysterious envelope was also exposed by the media to millions of viewers watching the preliminary hearing live on television. Considering racial issues and public opinion, the LAPD promptly announced the final forensic results, but did not disclose specific details. According to the forensic scientist's examination, the stiletto folding knife purchased by O.J. Simpson was not the murder weapon used to kill Nicole and Goldman. It was reported that the knife evidence was not of any use. Subsequently, the prosecution quickly chose to abandon this line of evidence. Dr. Lee, didn't you find 14 potential fingerprints on the knife? I think that's very important. Why did the prosecution abandon this line of evidence directly? Because for the prosecution, the most desirable result was for this knife to be the murder weapon, which would be most beneficial to them. But based on our forensic results, this knife has completely lost its value to the prosecution, so they naturally chose to abandon it. That's irresponsible behavior. Yes, this mysterious envelope might be an important climactic ending in a suspense novel, but real life doesn't present itself that way. For us now, we can only continue to focus on examining witness testimonies. After all, from what we know, we have already discovered some lapses in the LAPD's work. They all claimed in their testimonies that they were diligent and thorough, with no oversights. But many details we now know indicate that their actual work was not as rigorous and standardized as they claimed, but rather full of loopholes. For example, the LAPD overlooked the bloodstains on Nicole's back, which could have been left by the murderer. They cleaned it directly, thus missing the possibility of getting closer to the murderer and the truth. So their behavior and evidence need to be examined more deeply. But regarding the materials provided by the police, I think we have already reviewed them very carefully. Do we need to re-examine them? If we rely solely on the materials provided by the police, we won't be able to make new discoveries.